Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first official Dapper Dangerous podcast. Here we're going to talk about men's fashion, we're going to talk about fighting, and the uncanny amount of crossovers that actually exist between the two. It's all about mindset. And the first theme of any of our conversations today is the idea of failing forward. So, right now, as I'm making this first podcast in my guest room rather than the much more visually appealing space at the WeWork, is because of COVID-19. The coronavirus has everyone, worried, stocked up, staying indoors for the most part. And that is really having a big and negative effect on the business of a lot of freelancers such as myself, local small businesses. And I'm not gonna lie, for the first couple of days, I was feeling pretty down that I had to cancel all upcoming shopping trips, styling events, and a lot of these were a big deal to me. But at the end of the day, something that I've learned from years of fighting is that whenever you have a setback, it's important that you don't let it stop you. Even if you trip and stumble, you want to fall forward. So I figured this is a great opportunity for me to start this podcast, which has been a pet project in the back of my mind for a while, to work on more written and video content that I can share over the next few weeks. And even once, this whole thing is past and I'm up and moving again, styling folks in real life, which usually keeps me too busy to make a ton of content. Figure if I stockpile it now, then I'll be able to keep my presence online while getting busy in real life. So, first things first, whether it is style, whether it's fisticuffs, whatever you do, pretty much everything comes down to mindset and intentional mindset. Understanding the why of what you're doing will make you infinitely more effective than if you just go for it without thinking and without doing things purposefully. Mind you, it's important that you don't overthink because action generally does trump contemplation, but at the same time, the epitome of effectiveness is when you can find the happy medium between the two. And I'd really like to talk about that in the context of style first. The way I see it, there are two main mindsets to how people approach menswear and style in general. You've got folks who are doing this for artistic expression. They just want to, showcase themselves, their viewpoints, their values, their tastes to the world. And there's nothing wrong with that. Style and as an art form is very cathartic, and I'm a big proponent of doing that a bit. And then on this other hand, though, you've got people who are more concerned about effect. They want style to actually yield a positive effect in their professional lives, their personal lives, and their interpersonal lives. They want their style to be a tool to communicate their poise, their values. They want it to actually have a tangible effect on what they're doing. So it's not just for expression, but it's actually for effective communication. And now, while there is a lot of crossover between the two, and ideally you wouldn't pigeonhole yourself into only one camp, you'll find that the goals will require a different need and a different approach to how you actually go about styling yourself and how you take action and what will actually give you the results that you're looking for. So if you even look at the difference between expression and communication, expression is again all about showcasing your own tastes, your own opinions. It's about expressing that and showing that to the world. On the other hand, communication is actually more of a two-way street. It is important that you're able to honestly convey what you're thinking, what you're feeling, but just as important as the message going out is how well the message will be received. Because at the end of the day, if I am, being very authentic in how I express myself, but I'm doing it in a way that's not going to be taken well by the person I'm trying to express myself to, that doesn't make for good communication. So that ultimately is the difference between, say, something that's very aesthetically pleasing. A lot of Instagrammers sort of have this style that I'm a huge fan of. There are some guys on IG that I follow who I think are very artistic, and I'm a big fan of, but I'm like, this doesn't work for real life. This works as a piece of art that can inspire ideas that maybe people will implement in their own style for real life. But this exact outfit you cannot wear to anything except maybe like a festive gala or something like that. And I think that it's a very important distinction to make, because you'll find, for those of you who follow me on Instagram, I do a daily style tip, which I'd encourage you all to check out. That's Instagram at StyleMeBoss, short for Boston. And the thing is, the framework that I'm giving these tips and this advice from is, I'm thinking about this not from just purely expression. I'm thinking about this in the context, in the framework of communication and effect. Because what I'm trying to do to help my clients and myself is to allow them to communicate their identity, their values, their personality, and their expertise visually. So it has to actually work for them. This has to improve their lives. It has to allow them to both feel more confident and to garner confidence from people viewing them. If it's just cool looking, but it doesn't succeed in that, it doesn't send the right messages that are in line with their goals and what they're trying to accomplish, then no matter how good it looks, I'm really letting them down there. So a lot of the times when I may appear on my social media to be closed-minded about what works and what doesn't, it's because I'm coming from this place where my brand and my product is all about giving men guidance and how to articulate themselves effectively with style. So I'm only going to give you advice that works in real life. It's not about just what looks good or what doesn't look good. And that's why, even though there are many things that I think look good and I appreciate on other Instagrammers, or other stylists, and on other maybe celebrities, I can never advocate that one tries that approach in real life. It's a lot like fighting, where you can see someone do something crazy, like run off the wall and do a Jackie Chan kick, Anthony Pettis style, right? That's something that has worked and can work for maybe a certain particular small group of people like himself and whoever has successfully tried to copycat that. But that's not a good way to spend most of your time training. Most of us need to work on the basic footwork, 1-2s, round kicks, teeps, double legs, under punches. And if you spend too much time on something flashy that doesn't have a good basis and foundation, then you're doing yourself a disservice rather than a favor. And it's interesting because a lot of times when people are first starting out in style, they tend to gravitate towards flashiness, towards big oomph, big effect, not realizing that the times that someone can pull off those moves with extra flair and pizzazz, for it to be effective, it has to be set up with really strong, solid fundamentals. This is the concept that I talk about, the leather yellow jacket, or rather the yellow leather jacket, I should say. A lot of times people see something, one garment, one item that they think is so cool, and it might be very cool, but a lot of times when someone's new, they're just like, wow, that thing is gonna put all eyes on me, and that's gonna get all the attention, and that's what I'm looking for. I want to be loud and proud. But the thing is, a lot of times when people go for those items, if the rest of their foundation, if the rest of their outfit and their clothes don't fit them well, don't line up with what they're trying to communicate about themselves, then yeah, they'll get the eyes on them. But then once the spotlight is on them, the rest of it just falls apart, and it almost will just highlight the inadequacies and deficiencies about their style. So it's a really common mistake for new people to try to go overboard with something really loud when they would be better served by, again, building up the fundamentals and maybe having a small splash of color, maybe having one item that's a bit funkier, that's a bit more personal. But really, again, it's how the items and the pieces work together to create an efficient and effective and pleasing ensemble. That's what style is more about, or that's what's more effective in style than to just go all out on one really crazy shirt or a yellow leather jacket, for instance. Now, coming back to this whole idea of, again, expression, personal expression versus communication, it's so important to understand what it is that you're after, what you're looking to do, because I know some folks who dress in very interesting ways that they're looking to, only do this for social occasions. Obviously they wouldn't wear it to work, and maybe they have hobbies or they have side jobs that are in very niche fields where it actually behooves them to dress in and cater in the language of that niche field. So I have a friend who's really into tech wear. He looks like a cyberpunk ninja sometimes, and he's always wearing like it just looks like a ninja with a lot of buckles and belts and stuff like that. And I think that again, if you are even if you're dressing for your expression over effective communication, it's important for you to understand what that's going to do for you and what context that would work in. When he's going and hanging out with his parkour buddies, then they'll probably appreciate what he's wearing. And on top of that, the fabrics and the garments are made in such a way that they lend themselves to those activities. I mean, let's actually take this example even further. And I can relate to this because I'm a big nerd. I go to the anime convention once a year, and every year I end up buying a silly anime shirt. Now, if I'm first and foremost focused on self-expression, I may be, rather than effective communication. And if I'm more worried about showing my interests and my tastes than I am about being well received or using this image, my image, to leverage my position in professional or personal context, I may decide, hey, let me just rock this anime shirt every day to wear, to work. What if I show up trying to style someone in an anime shirt? And the thing is, yeah, maybe that will convey something about me, and maybe that is authentic to my own tastes. But in a lot of contexts, except at the anime convention, it's probably not going to be very well received. It's not dialed into the scenario. And that's a very important element of style, is context. You want to make sure that you're dialed into the scenario. You're using the right tools for the right tasks. And that's where if you think about, say, the video game or anime t-shirt, where it can be sort of tone deaf, and it can send the wrong messages in the wrong place because it looks like you're not socially tuned in, and that makes people less inclined to take you seriously or to want to work with you. So if you take this a little bit further, this is part of why, for instance, I'll dress down a bit more than I'd actually like to a lot of my work. I really enjoy menswear. That's a hobby of mine. I really enjoy suits, and I love to wear suits when I get the opportunity. But I really find that for most contexts that I'm personally in, most events that I'm attending, most of the time it makes more sense for me to dress it down just a little bit. Maybe I'll wear odd trousers and I can still harken back to my sartorial taste, or maybe I'll wear a sport coat and some chinos, but I want to make sure that I'm in line with with the circumstances, and also with what I want my client to see. So say if I'm going shopping with someone who is newer to dressing up, newer to style, newer to menswear, I don't really want to intimidate him too much by coming fully suited and booted and he's going to be walking around in jeans. But at the same time, it is important for me to showcase my professionalism by dressing for the occasion, by dressing up, and also my expertise, because if he's paying as much as he does for my services as a stylist, I better look stylish. So you'll often see me, depending on who I'm working with, I'll dress up or down for it. So for instance, I think the last time I took someone shopping, I was wearing chinos, a leather jacket, and a polo, for instance. It was a last weekend, I believe, because he's a more casual dressed down guy. It was a weekend, and I didn't want to exude the wrong vibes where it's too formal. If I showed up in a suit, that would be a little silly. Whereas in that case, I was able to convey both my seriousness, my professionalism, and the fact that I'm in tune, dialed into the environment and the context. It was a Saturday or Sunday. It was laid back. There's no reason for me to be too strictly business in that case. So it's, again, it's pivotal that if to be effective in style, you have to think about the context. And if you want your style to have an effect, a positive effect on your endeavors, then being tuned in is actually more important than looking good, or at least just as important. Bringing this back to the example of the anime t-shirt and plugging it into menswear and sartorialism, I know some folks who are very, like me, they're very enthusiastic about suits and ties and pocket squares, and they'd be inclined to overdress to events where they really ought not to. And there's this idea in the menswear community, especially amongst maybe menswear aficionados, menswear geeks, really, like myself, who are just like, well, you can never be overdressed. If you show up and you're the only one wearing a suit, it's because everyone else is underdressed and you're just looking proper. I mean, maybe in some. Here's the thing: if everyone else in the world is crazy, it's actually you who's crazy, because the norm and the standards and the context and the norm for the context is going to be decided by what the vast majority is, and not just the vast majority, but what the people in power in that scenario are viewing as the norm. They set the standard. So, for instance, I've had this debate with a good friend of mine who is very knowledgeable about menswear, and I often consult him when it comes to some of the finer details. But he really thinks that it's a good idea to dress in a sport coat or a suit or something going to like a sports game. And he's just like, what, are you just gonna drop your standards down to everyone else's level? And the answer to that, the correct answer to that, if you are dressing not just for yourself and your own pride and tastes, but again to have a positive effect, the answer to that is you do want to be on the upper echelon of, aesthetic appearance. So it would behoove you to maybe wear a very, sharp leather jacket, or maybe a sharp dress shirt and well-fitted jeans, not like a dress shirt and Oxford cotton button down, for instance, but or even a t-shirt and some nice jeans and some really well polished boots or something to that effect. But the idea is that you want to make sure that there's a range in which you're socially acceptable and you're dialed in. And if you're dressing for effect, you don't want to go under or over that range in most cases. Now, again, you can obviously see which side of the spectrum I fall on. I'm a big believer of using style as a tool to give you more efficacy in your professional and social endeavors. And I'm very oriented and tuned into what's going to deliver those results, because at the end of the day, I don't think that I'd be able to I don't think I'd be able to have clients who aren't getting some serious tangible benefit from what we do. I mean, how many people would support me at my current rates if all I did was give them a really luxury art project to do? No, I mean, this needs to actually have tangible effects on improving someone's life. For example, I've had a couple clients lately who, and this isn't the main focus of what I do, but they're single, and they've found that they've seen an immediate drastic difference in how their dating life has gone since they've upgraded their style. And I have one of my oldest clients, so let me give an example in this. I guess low-key I'm a little proud, but I have this gentleman who he's actually, in pretty good shape, and he's very successful, but he used to just dress in, he dressed like your average dude, and it didn't really always, he had to work for it to get anywhere in dating. Whereas he, in the first week after we did the style makeover, he's hitting me up and he's like, man, every night I've been out, I've had women come up to me and either give me their numbers or just strike up a conversation with me. And again, multiple women that week had come up to this guy and just been straight up like, let's chat, here's my number, call me. I'm not saying, I can't promise this will happen to everyone. I mean, that's not really I'm a style coach, not a dating coach. That's just a pleasant effect that happened for a few of my clients. Meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, my longest time client is, he's a through and through businessman, and he does a lot of work on high places. And he's said to me that not only does he feel more confident, hence more effective in the way he does business since upgrading his style and his image, but people also regard him with just they approach him slightly differently, and his aura and his style and his appearance lines up, or rather it all comes together to create an aura where his reputation and his image are aligned, and he's just like that guy in the best way possible. It's one of those things where, because at the end of the day, we all, whether we intend to or not, and even me, we all judge each other by appearance. I know better than anyone that if someone looks bad doesn't mean that they aren't very skilled, very smart, very hardworking, very good at what they do. Because I've taken so many men who are actually very successful, very smart, very hardworking, very talented, who looked not so smart or talented or successful, and I was able to bring their shine to the surface to make their image showcase what they've got going on for them. And so you'd think by now I would know better than to make assumptions and to judge a book by its cover, but it's just inadvertent. It's something that I do, even though I have so much proof to the opposite. I see someone and I'm just like, if they don't look sharp, I assume that they're not sharp. Whereas we've got this halo effect where if someone looks good, you assume that they just do good. And that's sort of like this funny meme that I've seen, and I think that it's very relatable, and I think that it perfectly encapsulates this, that we all do it, which is that meme where it's like this scrubby looking dude with like an oversized sport coat, jeans, and disgusting shoes, and the caption is, if this is your lawyer, you're going to jail. Look at that. I've got it right here on the image. Look at that, and tell me you don't feel that. And it's not wrong to do so. We are hardwired biologically to make snap judgments based off of our senses, and the one that we use the most is sight. So it's for that reason that it is a huge boost in every man, an instantaneous and huge boost in any man's charisma and social efficacy to have an image that does him justice. Mind you, there's no cookie cutter prescriptive style for everyone, because you have to understand not just what context is this person dressing in, what circles does he run in, but you have to line it all up with his personality and his own tastes. Because even if you look good, if it's not true to you, if it doesn't actually line up and is congruent with your personality, then something will be off. People can see that incongruence, that discomfort that you'll have wearing that. And that's why it's very important for me as a stylist to make sure that I capture the best version of my client, not just make him look like some copy of me in some odd way. But in any case, that is a topic for another day. What I really want to impress upon any of my viewers is that when you approach style, you have to think and understand what your foremost goal is. Is it just for fun, just to express yourself? In which case, your style, whether it's menswear, whether it's streetwear, whether it's tech wear, whether it's dadcore, whatever it is, I mean, it really might as well be you wearing, for the effects that it has, you might as well just be wearing sweatpants and a video game t-shirt everywhere. Because as silly as that sounds and as hyperbolic as that may sound, if you're not dialed in to what effect this is going to have on your surroundings and the people you interact with, I mean, you're just going to bumble around. Either it'll work for you or it won't work for you. And until you decide that to prioritize or consider that other element, your aesthetics is not going to make any difference. And on the other hand, if you're dressing for communication and for effect, yes, there are shortcuts and there are things that you can wear that will automatically make someone expect or insinuate that you're this or you're that. It's still also just as important that you have that bit of personality and that personal touch to it that makes it authentic for you, because sooner or later you are going to betray that it's inauthentic because of your discomfort, or people will just find that your aesthetic doesn't really line up with your vibe. And incongruence is something that inauthenticity really stands out, and I think that that's something that will actually hurt your charisma very much. So long story short, think about the why of your style, of anything you do, but of style especially. Really think about the why, and from there stems all the answers. So thank you very much for checking out this first episode of Dapper Dangerous. Hopefully in the future, I'll be using the much more aesthetically pleasing WeWork spaces. If you would like to be a guest on the show, please reach out to me. And if you have any suggestions, I would love to hear them. Thanks so much. See you later.